So what's the deal with the little space in contracts, in some contracts where you have to put your initials? Is that necessary? And do wedding professionals need to do the same thing? Find out in today's video. Hey out there, welcome back to Wedding Industry Law. My name is Rob. I am an attorney representing wedding industry professionals. And the question of the day is, do you in your client contract need to require the client to not only sign the contract, but to initial every page or maybe even every paragraph? Some people out there do that, but is there any type of legal requirement or some type of obligation legally that you have to do that? The short answer is no. There are almost no jurisdictions that I can think of that would require you in your service contract with your client to require them to initial anything, okay? Now, let me just quickly say that the idea of the signature and getting a signature, meaning the full person's name, is important. In order to really be able to reinforce and have evidence that the couple has agreed to something is to get their signature. It shows that they have what's called manifested intent to be bound by the terms of the contract that they have signed, right? So it also, in many instances, verifies the version of the contract that they've signed. So there could be multiple versions of a contract, perhaps leading up to the final version floating around. And it's the one that actually has a signature is the one that the parties have agreed to. So, but that's a signature. Why is there a situation, or why are there situations in which somebody has thought it prudent for initials? And the answer is that there are some jurisdictions out there where it's can void a contract or make the contract voidable if the contract sticks inside of it crazy terms. So if your contract is 3 or 4 pages and, it's in fine print and it's for wedding florists, you're a wedding florist and the couple is wanting flowers from you, but there's contract 36B subpart A1G in tiny print that says that they have to name their firstborn child after you. And they didn't see that because it's in little print. There are jurisdictions that are not going to hold that up, that they're not going to enforce that because it was not conspicuous enough in the contract, aside from being against public policy, but it wasn't conspicuous. It needs to be bold font, not lost in a sea of terms. So in other words, if it's an aberration to the typical contract and it's hidden, it won't be enforced. So in at least some instances in which people have to initial things, it's to get around that, hey, listen, we're not trying to hide this. And then by the fact that you have to initial it right next to it shows that we want you to see it and we want you to be aware of it. And it's a double safety for us that you're initialing it. Because again, we don't want to judge later on down the line to say, well, you hid this strange term in the middle of a contract so that they wouldn't see it. Okay. It kind of gets around that. The other idea of the initials being on certain pages or whatever is, again, for the idea that there could be multiple versions of the contract floating out there, which has multiple pages. So we don't want, in other words, we don't want there to be a situation in which the contract is 10 pages long, and because there's only one signature page, somebody's going to stick different pages in, the first 3 or 4 pages, right? and who knows what the final version is. We want, by having initials on every single page, we are safe in somebody slipping in different versions of those other pages that weren't actually signed by the client or by whoever. So getting around the judge voiding a term because it was hidden, and then the idea of there being possibly people being able to stick different versions of the contract pages in there, those are going to be the two primary reasons why you see initials. Okay, so does this apply to your wedding business? Maybe not. I mean, possibly, but probably not. You probably, even though you might not legally be required to have them, you also might not, from an operations standpoint, need them either, because you're probably not going to be a situation where the client is taking pages out, writing something new and slipping them back in and being like, oh, this is the contract. You're probably not going to be worried about that. You're also probably not going to be very worried about the client saying, your term A1 over here is crazy, and I didn't know that. I didn't agree to that. Because typically if the contract is of a certain length and it's not an aberration, in other words, if it's not something crazy, a judge is going to hold the client accountable to it for the most part. But I do have clients that insist on initials in certain portions of the contract, not for the reasons that we've talked about, but it allows the wedding professional at the time the contract is signed to educate the client. So, client, I need you to initial here, and the reason why we're initialing here is because I wanted to let you know about our non-refundable retainer policy. You're not going to get the retainer back XYZ, and by initialing here, we're just all making sure that you understand that. So it's an education tool for the client. That is the main reason why I see it in some of my clients' contracts. It's an education tool at the time of signing. So at the end of the day, is it something that you can do? Absolutely. Are you required to do it? Probably not. Is it a good idea? Depends on, your operations and how you do things. There are some, benefits to it. Like I said, for education, that's just going to be something that's left up to you and your, thoughts on the matter. I hope that you found this informative. If you did, please be sure to like and subscribe. Leave a comment below. Let me know in the comments here on YouTube. Do you require your clients to initial some page other than the signature page? Let me know. Is that something that you're thinking about? And hopefully we can get a good conversation going. New episodes, new videos every Monday. And with that, folks, we'll see you next time.